Good morning. Oh, come on, Fresno. I know you can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We're so excited to be here with you today. My name is Mark Philpart, and I lead the Black Freedom Fund. Thank you all for showing up today. This is truly a momentous event. The Black Freedom Fund was created in 2020, as many of you know, amidst the racial reckoning. And the vision for the fund, created by organizers and funders, was to really sustain investment in Black power building, recognizing that organizations who are on the front lines of change have too often been subjected to this kind of seesawing of investment, where when the crisis is happening in communities, they are front and center. They're receiving investment and support, but when the news cameras turn away, that support recedes, making it nearly impossible for these organizations to really advance the aspirational vision that they have for change. So the Freedom Fund was created to ensure that organizations on the front lines have the resources that they need to be able to sustain and advance their important work. And we're very proud to be in partnership with the California Legislative Black Caucus to bring you this State of Black California series. The vision behind this series, which is really important to articulate and share with all of you today, is to create momentum and build awareness around this vision for repair. Now, many of you know that California is the first state in the country to advance a reparations agenda in a way that is significant and meaningful and includes state legislative action. We don't take the work of the Reparations Task Force for granted and recognize that in order to achieve the vision that is articulated in the Reparations Task Force, we need all of you to be engaged and understanding of what is in there and really advocating for the change that is defined in that seminal document. And so this series is an opportunity for you to get to learn about that task force report, the policy agenda, and the messaging and framing that's really central to this campaign. The other thing that it does is provides you with an opportunity to share what's important to your family, to your community, to your region, as it relates to all those topics in the Reparations Task Force report. So this isn't a one-way conversation. This is a bidirectional conversation. This is an opportunity for your voice to be raised so that you are helping the Black Caucus build the agenda that is going to be reflective of your needs, so that they can do their work in the Capitol in partnership with you and in a way that actually resonates with the things that are most important to your lived experience. So we welcome you today to be a part of that process, right? And the important thing that I just want to state, and I think all of us know this, is that it's not the role of the Black community alone to advance a conversation on reparations. Reparations and a vision for repair is really about a healthy, inclusive, reparative democracy. And it requires all of us, all walks of society, to help advance that vision. And so today you'll hear from not only members of the Black Caucus, but members of the Latino Caucus who care deeply about these issues and care deeply about this vision for change that not only will be transformative for the Black community, but for all of us. So I'm grateful to have you here with us today. This is one of many conversations. We began in San Diego at Juneteenth weekend. We had another town hall event in Santa Barbara, and Fresno is our third. We're so very excited to have you. This is going to be a tremendous opportunity for you to learn and for you to raise your voice and make contributions to this series that we know will inform what the caucus prioritizes in the future. The last thing I'll say here, and I think it's just really important for all of us to know, is that, you know, when we think about the places that are priorities for this town hall, it was important for us to hold Fresno as one of these key places that we needed to be in. Many of you know that California is often talked about as the fourth largest economy in the country, or in the world, I'm sorry, in the world, the fourth largest economy in the world. And that stat is always one that I think masks the profound poverty that also exists in our state. And Fresno and the Central Valley it represent a lot of that poverty. You know, the highest kind of concentration of poverty in the state exists in this region. And when we talk about the prosperity, I think it's incumbent upon us to also talk about the inequity. And to do that, to talk about one without the other is disingenuous. And I think today you'll hear a lot of data and statistics and information that'll bring both of those together. But at the end of it, I want you to understand that we're all working to transform those realities. And there's tremendous opportunity for us to be a part of the solution to move this transformative vision for change forward. So with that, I want to just take a moment to give you a sense for what we'll do today. We're going to start with this brief welcome and then dive into hearing from our beloved legislators. We'll talk a little bit about the data facing Black California and Fresno. We'll then talk about the reparations communication strategy. We'll talk about the policy package and the approach. Then we'll have a Q&A with the lawmakers who are advancing those conversations. And then finally, we'll round out with two panels, one on wealth and economic opportunity, and then another on power building and repair. And we'll close with a call to action. That sound good, y'all? Okay, all right. With that, I want to welcome a daughter of Fresno, our beloved chair, Assemblymember Wilson.
Well, good morning. I guess it ain't that good of a morning. Let's try that again. I'm used to the call and response. All right, good morning. There we go. I cannot tell you what a privilege it is to be here standing in this place right now. First of all, I have the distinct honor of representing the 11th District in the Assembly, which includes all of Solano County, a little bit of Contra Costa County, and a little bit of Sacramento County. I also have the distinct privilege of being chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. But what is the coolest thing right now, and the best privilege ever, is this is my hometown. Yes. I was born and raised in Fresno. My mother gave birth to me at Community Hospital, which is somewhere right there. Went to all kind of elementary schools in Fresno because we moved around a lot. Happened to get real stable when I got to Edison Computech, went to Computech, graduated Edison, class of 94. Woohoo, I know there's some 94 grads in the house. And we're about to celebrate our 30-year reunion, which is crazy. But I just in this moment to be back home is just, it just feels amazing. And I get to, my family is still here, so I get to visit quite regularly. But when I became chair of Black Caucus, you know, we did a lot of things in Southern California, and that was because that's where the majority of our members over the history of the Legislative Black Caucus came from. But it was really important to me, being a daughter of Fresno, a daughter of the Central Valley, that we did this event here. That when we thought about the 6 or 7 cities that we were going to go to, that Fresno was one of them. And I'll tell you, it was funny. I was talking with my husband because it became really inconvenient. I had to come in from Lake Tahoe yesterday. My youngest is going off to college. This is his last weekend at home. And I was like, oh, I really want to be home. And he was like, why don't somebody else do it? And I was like, oh, Lord, as much as I fought for this to be in Fresno, and I had to fight even though I was chair, I could not miss this time. So I just wanted to take that point of personal privilege to just talk about what an honor it is to be in this space and to be here and to see all of you here. And so welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a collaboration between the California Legislative Black Caucus and the California Black Freedom Fund. And first, we have to do this because it's extremely important, is the land acknowledgement. We absolutely are grateful to be in the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and Monos peoples whose diverse tribal communities share stewardship over this land. And we do these land acknowledgements because in that recognition that we are not, we are caretakers of someone else's land. And so it is a pleasure to be able to be in this space and on this land, to be able to have this conversation about the state of Black California. We have, our legislative caucus is technically made up of 15 individuals. 12 legislators and 3 constitutional officers. In the legislature, we have 10 assembly members hailing from all across the state of California. We are more than Southern California now. And we have 2 senators, and one of each, a black woman and a black man. And we are so excited that in this new session that starts in December, we are likely to double those numbers. And so that is such a wonderful feeling. And we have 3 constitutional officers. And so usually when I say constitutional officers, people are like, well, what is that? That is a part of, I call the governor's suite. There are 8 constitutional officers starting with the governor, and 3 of those are black people. Y'all, that was something to clap about. We have three of our constitutional officers are black individuals. We have our Secretary of State, Shirley Weber. We have our Controller, Malia Cohen, and we have our State Superintendent, Tony Thurman. And so we have 15 total, 12 legislators, 3 constitutionals. Our 3 constitutionals serve as ex officios. We also have been doing a lot of work over the years to increase the quality of life of Black Californians, to ensure that they are taken care of. That has been the focus of the Black Caucus. But as Mark noted, we've been on this journey as it relates specifically to reparations. There was this historic study that was done, the task force done, that laid out the history of slavery and discrimination and California's role in that. Because a lot of people, when we talk about reparations, they say, why California? Well, California had a role to play. We were a free state on paper, but just on paper. And a lot of the laws that came through during that time uplifted and upheld slavery. So even on paper, we weren't. So it's really cool to be able to have these conversations with you all today. We do have some legislators here with us, legislators that represent the Central Valley who are doing amazing work in their own right. So I want to give an opportunity to bring them up, have them share a few words before we get started into the program. You have someone who represents this area as a senator who is powerful. She chairs the appropriations, and if she's been through a little bit of a ringer, I think, over the last few days as we had finally dispensed with the final things on suspense. But she is an amazing legislator. She's represented you in so many ways and have been powerful, and we're happy to co-labor with her as members of the Black Caucus. So I would like to bring up Senator Ana Caballero.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember. Isn't she wonderful? She's great. So I had to come here to learn that she's from Fresno. So I'm so excited because now, we're going to be joined at the hip trying to make sure that we make sure that our district gets what it needs. And so I'm really thrilled to be here. and thank you for the opportunity to participate. I want to make sure to thank the members of the California Legislative Black Caucus and for all of the work that they've been doing on the 2024 reparations legislative package that you're going to get to hear some about today, which tackles really a wide range of issues. And I also want to thank the Reparations Task Force. This task force put together the report upon which everything's based. And the task force worked tirelessly, hours and hours, to go through the data, understand it, place it in its context, its historical context. And I think you're going to be really incredibly impressed with the amount of information that they've been able to put together about reparations and why it's so important. I'm here today to welcome y'all to Fresno. I know many of you are from Fresno. My district is the 14th Senate district. It includes Fresno, Madera, and Merced counties. And I'm really thrilled that Fresno was chosen. It's the 5th largest city in the state, and we're an important part of the economic engine, and many people forget that. And as was stated, we have some of the highest levels of poverty, and that poverty sits in people of color. And so we have to do a whole heck of a lot to make sure we have the resources to meet the needs of the community, and reparations becomes a really, really important part of this. I'm thrilled today to be here with my colleagues, Assemblymember Dr. Joaquin Arambula and Assemblymember Esmeralda Soria. We work really hard together to try to make sure that the kind of opportunities that we have in our community are there for everyone, whether it's an education, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's health care. Those are just a snapshot of some of the issues that we've been working on. But what I want to focus on is that we know what needs to be done. The mortality rate for infants of black mothers is the highest in the state. The incarceration rate is the highest for African American men. The fastest growing population of homelessness is individuals over the age of 60, and it disproportionately hits black men. Why? Because they worked their entire life and yet end up with the lowest pensions, the lowest safety net, and they're one step away through a medical bill or a crisis in the family from being homeless. We have to change this. We have to do everything we can in our power to right the wrongs, and it's not all about money. It's also about respect. It's about lifting people up. It's about acknowledging the harm and making it right, and it's about restoring dignity. So I'm really thrilled to be here today. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to continuing our work together. We aren't done.
Thank you, Senator Caballero. With that, I would like to move on to, as she noted, there are two people on the Assembly side that represent the great city of Fresno. And so we'll start with a fellow Tiger who I went to high school with, Assemblymember Dr. Joaquin Arambula.
Well, it's good to see so many friendly faces out here today and to recognize that we've had the largest turnout of any of their turnouts they've had thus far. Let's give yourselves an applause. Now, the lights are bright, so I'm looking for Pastor Kreiner, who told me something about 3 months ago when we had an opening for the St. Rest Food Hub, a food hub that helps to distribute food on the west side of Fresno, oftentimes where we are still lacking and have food insecurity. But he told me how important it was to actually just speak from the heart, to preach, as he said, than to read a speech. And so today you're going to hear more of my heart and why I am standing up, because I believe it's important that I stand in solidarity with the Black Caucus to be here for the state of Black California in our backyard. Now, I do so with a humble spirit, knowing that I will spend more time listening today than I will spend speaking, and that it's important for us to spend the time to listen to each other so we can make improvements into our community. But I also want to validate the people who are here, and you shouldn't need validation in Assemblymember Wilson because she is a Tiger. And for those of you who are from Edison, you know that it's one tiger, many stripes. And that we stand up for each other when it matters. Now, I've been holding down the Edison caucus for a while. I'm glad my sister came. But we shouldn't be surprised that it's black women who are saving us again. And in this next election, we need to make sure that our voice is heard. And so I'm asking us to make sure that we're listening to the leaders who come from areas who have lived experiences. Because what we know is that your zip code, where you were raised, is more important than your genetic code. That for too many of us who come from the wrong side of the tracks, we have preordained lower life expectancies. That those who went to Edison live 20 years shorter than those who went to Bullard, where my wife went to school, doesn't feel just, and begs the question to figure out what policies were passed that led to these discrepancies. And so we have to acknowledge the roles that happened in history, the redlining that happened that forced so many of our communities to live on the side of the tracks where they were having industrial pollution. And the role that the environment plays when you have the worst air quality in the nation and where 1 million Californians still cannot drink clean drinking water in our state does not feel just. And so when we start to own what our history is, we can make improvements into our lives. And so I'll validate that we are also doing good work right now as I witness with Dr. Corey Jackson, who will come up next. For I've spent the last 7 years of my life working on the Budget Subcommittee of Health and Human Services, where we help to administer dollars for those who are poor and who are vulnerable. And I've witnessed firsthand Corey Jackson ask some of the tough questions and be empathetic and be determined to deliver results for our community, even in tough budget years. And he's been a champion to make sure that we've delivered results and that we've uplifted our communities. I want to make sure that you also realize he helps to bring a smile to so many of us who work in the Capitol. I share a wall with him in the Capitol building, and I hear his infectious laugh from time to time, and it brings such joy to me and my office that I hope he will share that with you here today. But I want to make sure that we acknowledge that while these are tough discussions, that we have to stand in solidarity together to make sure that we're fighting for progress. Now, in my time in office, we've been able to achieve some of that progress, and I wish to speak of that. We were able to accomplish together transformative climate communities that brought resources back home, and that you helped to determine through participatory budgeting what we wanted to spend those dollars on. Look, many people in the Capitol had their own ideas, but when we listened to you, we followed your lead. And what we did is partner with our State Center Community College District and helped to establish a Southwest Community College District because of resolute and determined community members. We've provided an educational opportunity, a ladder for those of us who went to school in the Southwest to believe that we could achieve ourselves. We had to listen to community to hear what your top priorities are. And I emphasize that we're going to bring a Measure Q up this upcoming election to finish the job in Southwest Fresno. And I will share with you that just yesterday I became a signatory of that to help to make sure that those of you who are voting in this next election will help it to pass. And so I ask those of you who are here, let's finish the job in Southwest Fresno and provide that educational opportunity for all. Now, I do this because I know the power of education. My grandfather never went to a single day of school. He never learned to read. I stand before you as our state's first Latino physician who's elected to the state assembly, knowing that it came through the education I got right here at Edison through public schools. And that we need to make sure that we're providing those opportunities to future generations, and that we're listening to community on how we can atone for the past. Now I stand in solidarity with my Black Caucus with every reparations bill that's been eligible on our floor thus far, and I look forward to the discussions that we have before us. Because it's time for us as a state to own our past, to acknowledge it, and to atone, and to make better for future generations. I'm grateful that Assemblymember Wilson would sacrifice her time with her family and her son on her last weekend to come back home and to have this conversation right here, that I wanted to make sure to be here to welcome you as well. Thank you for allowing me to share words with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Arambula. And last but not least, your other representative of the great city of Fresno, Assemblymember Esmeralda Soria.
Good morning, Fresno.
Now, y'all can do better than that.
I know. Good morning, Fresno. I will say it's good to be back home because going back and forth to Sacramento obviously gets a little exhausting. But being here in Fresno, it is just the best place to be at. So I want to thank all of you for making the time to come this morning and for showing up. You know, and actually I feel proud that Fresno showed up and is showing out, especially on such an important topic. Not only here for our community, but for the entire state of California. And for us to be able to lead the way in this nation, talking about what happened historically to our Black community in California and in this country. I also want to acknowledge our Legislative Black Caucus for taking the time to pick Fresno as part of their tour to really showcase the work not only that they're doing, but what the task force spent the last couple years really diving deep into the heart of, you know, what reparations means and the history really of our Black community in the state of California. For me, I am proud to stand here also with my other Central Valley colleagues, Senator Ana Caballero and Assemblymember Dr. Joaquin Arambula, who have been doing some amazing work to uplift families here in the Central Valley. I also want to just say welcome home to Chairwoman Wilson, because as she said, she was born and raised here. And I know that when she's making decisions in Sacramento on behalf of her district, she still remembers also the uniqueness of this region and understands very intimately the challenges that we continue to face. And many times, and I will say all the time, has been an ally on the issues that we care about here in the Valley. So I want to acknowledge her as well. And then thank Dr. Corey Jackson also for being here this morning. I will say that I'm honored to continue to represent the city of Fresno. You guys know that I spent 8 years on that city council fighting for our communities and making sure that we corrected many of the wrongs in partnership with Dr. Joaquin Arambula when he got to the legislature. I today represent 14 cities in the Assembly District 27, which encompasses many rural communities in Fresno, Merced, and Madera, including the northern western part of this city. I want to say thank you to Mr. Mark Philippart for moderating today and introducing, you know, the work that the task force has been doing, and then the Black Caucus as they proposed legislation this year. I also just want to just say that today is an important day for our region and for the state of California as we continue to learn and to talk about the historical wrongs that happened to the Black community here in our community and also across the state of California. And I am so proud that the Legislative Black Caucus has really taken this on this year, and I'm proud to also stand in solidarity with many of the proposals that they have put forward to ensure that every Black community member in the state of California has the ability to prosper and thrive here in the state of California. Here in my district and in the Central Valley, which we've been, you know, I think many times we feel ignored by Sacramento. We also have powerful and historical Black communities that have shaped our region, our city. I think Dr. Joaquin Arambula already mentioned what has happened in Southwest Fresno, and really the communities and the Black leaders. I want to recognize the Black leaders that have been fighting for decades. I won't name people by name because I don't want to get in trouble, but you guys know who you are. You guys have been working for decades, not giving up on the investments that you wanted to see in Southwest Fresno as a result of the redlining and the disinvestments that historically happened in this city. Making sure that you're fighting for our kids in our schools to make sure that they're not being suspended at, these really high rates. Making sure that they are reading and writing by third grade so that they can also have the ability to succeed in our community. I want to point out in my district, I also have, aside from obviously representing the city of Fresno, I represent other communities that also have significant Black communities in them represented. Madera, in Merced, we have Atwater, Dos Palos, and we also have a proud legacy, I will say, of our Black farmers that still persist to this day, and I've met with many of them as the ag chair of the state, trying to make sure that they don't have to give up what they have known and what they love to do here in our community. I also want to just acknowledge that we've made some enormous strides here in our community locally. We have made some significant strides in the state of California, but there's a lot of work that we must continue to do. And just very briefly, I want to say that I'm very proud that Senator Caballero and I this last year were able to work hard to secure $57 million to reopen the Madera Community Hospital. You may ask, well, why is that important? Well, because access to health care, especially to the most vulnerable communities, is extremely critical. And if an entire county does not have a hospital where our families can go to the emergency room, then where is the access to health care for them? Where is the equity when they want to receive the health care services, especially the emergency health care services that they deserve? And that has been some very tough work, but very important work, in particular for our communities of color, that this is the only hospital that they would have the ability to go to, maybe because of transportation challenges or any other barriers that they may have. I also want to just share, that my husband actually always reminds me of the legacy of discrimination. You guys know my husband, Terrence Frazier, especially here in the city of Fresno. He reminds me of the covenants that still today exist in the deeds of homes where Black people were not allowed to live in certain neighborhoods. And actually, my husband owns a home in a neighborhood where it was specifically outlined. Obviously, those covenants are no longer enforceable, but it is a reminder of how far we've come. But there is still much more work to do, because in Southwest Fresno, we still need housing. And I know that he's fighting hard to make sure that we're building that type of housing that we need in that community. But it takes a long time, and that's why we have to continue to push the envelope on these issues, recognizing the difference that we need to continue to make in our communities. With that, I just want to welcome all of you. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this great event, especially here in the city of Fresno. And I look forward to continuing to work with the California Legislative Black Caucus in advancing equity, equality for all Black Californians, not only here in the Valley, but in the state. Thank you.
Can we give another round of applause to all of your representatives? These are legislators who've regularly proven their allyship. Some people will say, I'm an ally to you, I support you, but they have done it not only with their votes and their advocacy to other members when we needed them to be in the fight for all the wonderful things that the Black Caucus is doing. And so we are now going to move into the program. We have the California Freedom Fund who are doing this work on behalf of the Black Caucus, and we are so ready to get started. Are you ready to get started? So last but not least, I'm going to bring up, I'm going to introduce this gentleman who has really just been a force to be reckoned with the moment he stepped into the Assembly. And when the Black Caucus was talking about doing the State of Black California series, we were navigating like where to do it and having all these discussions, as you can imagine, with 15 dynamic voices trying to come together, that could be difficult, right? And challenging. But we had one common purpose, is to ensure that Black Californians were taken care of, were educated about the work we were doing, and a part of the process. And so when we came up with these series, he took it on as chair of these series, and along with the support of California Black Freedom Fund, and they have been amazing. And yes, Fresno showed up and showed out, so we are so thankful. We hope you are still here at 1 o'clock when we adjourn. Can y'all make that commitment to me? Do I see nodding heads? Yes, thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce him, and then we're going to take a few photos. We're going to leave the stage, and then he'll have the mic from that point on. And so please give, because he's been working really hard to make sure that these happen. We still have more to do, but please give a warm, hearty Fresno welcome to Assemblymember Dr. Corey Jackson. Let's take our picture.
All right, how's everyone doing? Everyone's ready to get to work here? We're going to bring up the slides for the USC data. We are going to be going through some data points so that we can understand the context in which we are trying to go about doing this work. I'm Dr. Corey Jackson, Assembly member from the 60th Assembly District, so representing cities of Riverside, Moreno Valley, Paris, Hemet, San Jacinto in the Inland Empire. And one of the things that we wanted to do is make sure that you see the data of what is the state of our entire village of California, but then what does that compare to your village here in Fresno and surrounding region, right? Now, this is also to give you a call to action to say, when you see your data, what you gonna do about it, right? You're not just listening to say you've been a part of it, and then you're gonna say, okay, Black Caucus, you guys do something about it. Right, I remember watching a video of Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and she says, you know what, every time I go somewhere, y'all say, you go, girl. But then she said, well, stop telling me to go, you go. What are you going to do about it, right? And as we go through this data, it's important for you to see where you fit in. What area are you going to get involved in? Either personally or being a part of an organization that's dealing with that, But the idea is this: do not leave here and just say that was a great event and then go about your business and get back on the couch. Right? We've got to do something about it, and it takes each and every one of us to get it done. So the first thing is we want to make sure you see a heat map here of Fresno. And one dot represents 150 people. Okay? So as you can see, this was Fresno in 1990. All right? And then this is Fresno in 2020. So what do you see the difference of? You're starting to see our population spreading out more. Right? Now, there could be good things and bad things about that. There could be good things in terms of now we're moving on to other communities, right? Communities traditionally we have been locked out of. But then also you're starting to see a disbursement of political power as well. Okay? And then, of course, you know the origins of Black Fresno. You know it better than any of us. Not too far from here, you also know about Allensworth in 1908, which founded the first in California to be founded that's financed and governed by African Americans. And as you know, the Black Caucus and the state of California has been reinvesting in Allensworth to restore those historical buildings and to make sure that it continues to be a monument of what can happen when Black people work together, organize, consolidate resources, and to be able to do great things that others aren't willing to do for us. Right? It should be a reminder. If they won't educate our children appropriately, we might need to be educating our own children appropriately. Right? If historic institutions in this community won't invest in us, it's time to build our own historic institutions and foundations and other things. But the idea is that we have to take back agency. That's what Allensworth means. Now, this is what the Black population growth has looked like throughout California from 1990 to 2021. And as you can see that in Fresno, the Black population has grown in terms of percentage of overall population, up 37%. Okay? You and Kern County continues to show that this is where we need to continue to invest in because you're part of the future growth of California and African Americans. Very important. And as you can also see, there's areas that are declining in California when it comes to African Americans. Alameda County, right? Our Oakland brothers and sisters. We also have others in San Francisco, brothers and sisters, all those high cost of living locations. Well, it's hard to say that because every part of California is now a high cost of living, but super high cost of living, right, is happening in places in Alameda County, of course, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, which means that other parts of California is growing because of that, right? What does that look like when we start specifically looking at Fresno County? Even though it is a percentage, 37% growth, we are still seeing an overall in the county of Fresno, we still see a 6% decline in African American population in Fresno County, okay? While other communities continue to grow in those areas. Now, what's also important to see is that white population is declining. Our Native American brothers and sisters are declining in this area as well. If you look at Fresno City, overall, we still see a decline in our population as well. Now you can see the other groups and where they're going, of course, and a continued increase of our Latino brothers and sisters and our API brothers and sisters. Now, what about the change in youth population? And this is a side-by-side when you look at California versus the city of Fresno. You are seeing, in California as a whole, you are seeing the youth population declining. Our state is getting older. Pretty soon, within our lifetime, the senior population will be the highest population in California. And a lot of that is because we are slowing down having babies. Black folks, y'all need to start having babies again. What's going on? You had all that time during the pandemic and have nothing to show for it. Y'all wasted that pandemic, y'all. Get it together. All right? I'll stop. But honestly, but we do need to think about that, folks. Right? And we know also it's an economic issue, right? We also know it's an employment issue. We know these things. Right? Incarceration issue, okay? But the idea is this. This is why we have got to band together and change the outcomes of our folks, change the investments of our folks, because the only reason why we continue to maintain a healthy population in terms of California is not because of African American growth, it's because of African growth in California, right? Which means we need our African and Caribbean and Afro-Latino population, brothers and sisters, to come into California so we can continue to maintain our numbers, right? And so the idea is this. We are them and they are us. You understand that? We are them and they are us. So we need to make sure that we are welcoming our Haitian brothers and sisters and welcoming them. We need to make sure we are welcoming our Nigerian and Guyanian and Congo and all those populations. Why? Because we need them and they need us. They are our future. That's what the data says. So we need to get with it. Also, this is another way of looking at the changing demographics of California. And as you can see, we continue to decline in the overall percentage of our population, but we are lagging behind growth in our population. That makes sense? We are not growing as fast as other populations, which means we are declining in the overall percentage of the population of California. And the same thing goes with Fresno County as well. 4%. We are headed towards, by 2060, only being 40%, 4% of this community. Also, when you talk about native born, right? We've talked about this before. You're starting to see the differences when it comes to those who are populations that are born here as opposed to populations who have immigrated here. All right? And again, 4% of the population. Now, what's the median age of population? In the United States, we are 35. The average age in the United States of African Americans is 35. In California, it's 38. We are getting older. All right? When you look at Fresno County, the average age is 35. And as you can see, compared to our other brothers and sisters of other communities. Let's talk about job growth. In Fresno, you are seeing job growth. However, and is actually a little bit, in terms of overall growth, you're actually seeing it at a higher pace than California, and certainly we are higher than the job growth in the United States. Now the next question is, well, what kind of jobs are they though? We there now, relax. Now, earnings per job, right? Earnings per job, you are seeing a higher percentage, even though you have higher growth in terms of number of jobs, in terms of percentage compared to California. You are correct. They are not very much high-paying jobs, right? Let's go back to overall job growth. You see, you are the bluish line, higher job growth. But then when you go to earnings per job in terms of growth, you fall back. You were at the top, but in terms of earnings, you're towards the bottom. You're at the bottom. Okay? So, let's talk about income growth for full-time workers. And when you look at this, you're seeing that in the 10th percentile, there is a decline in growth. But then when you go to the 90th percentile, you are seeing, although California has higher, compared to you, you only represent 10% of that. When you look at the labor force and the participation rate, African Americans are in 1990 was 67% in terms of participation rate in the workforce. it has slightly gone up to 68%. But again, look at that compared to other populations. When you look at unemployment, our percentage in California of unemployment has gone down just a little bit. But look at our unemployment compared to other populations. And you're going to start seeing a trend here, because as you can see, there are two groups here who have historic oppression, genocide, and dehumanization. And those two populations are the ones with the highest unemployment, us and our Native American brothers and sisters. Think about in the context of reparations, right? When you look at Fresno County, 11% unemployment. Again, a decrease over the decades, but still at the top of the list. Percentage of families living below the 150% of the federal poverty line. We have seen a decline. Right? But we still have some time to go. And to be honest, I'm actually also worried about our Latino brothers and sisters, because they actually have higher poverty levels than we do. And you can see that throughout the state of California when you look at that data as well. And then we have educational attainment. And actually, over the decades, we've actually been kicking butt, y'all, when it comes to education. You need to know that. You should give yourself a round of applause for that. Because when you actually see towards those who are having the highest degree levels, we are actually continue to grow in that area. If you even look at those who have some college, right? If you even look at those with AA degrees, we are the highest population when it comes to AA degrees, when it comes to the percentage of our community. Also for BAs or higher, we continue to be competitive overall when it comes to that as well. But also the idea is that we are continuing to see a good percentage of our population. We still need to grow, right? But we're headed in the right direction. We just need to continue to go in that direction. Now, when you look at Fresno County, you're also seeing that we are still being pretty competitive when it comes to that as well. But now, how does that correlate with real money and our wages? Sometimes people are always arguing that we are being treated equal now. Right? You hear our debates on the floor, and we're always hearing our conservative folks say, well, we know you weren't equal before, but now you are. Now it's up to you whether you catch up on your outcomes. Right? I won't name names. I almost did. Okay. So, but look at this. Seriously. Even when we have the same degrees, we're still being paid less. So when you talk about the same degree, the same experience, we are still devalued in terms of our worth at any particular job. That can only be explained through issues of discrimination. A devaluing of our worth as human beings. We still have a 3/5 of a person mentality in our capitalistic market. So we still have work to do. Of course, we're not the only community that has to fight for some respect get some respect on it, right? But also, a part of that is the lack of access to vehicles. Unless you're in a large urban area where vehicles are optional, we still have too many places in California where if you don't have a vehicle, the likelihood for you to be able to have a consistent method to get that job once you get it and to keep it is very hard. And we top that area in terms of availability, access to a vehicle to get to where we need to go. And that is in California, but y'all know usually the trend. Tell you the truth, it's actually worse here in Fresno County. Right? California, 14%. Fresno County, 22%. More than double any other community. Right? It keeps getting worse, by the way. I'm just going to just let you know right now. Want to prepare yourself. Home ownership. Oh, Lord. Home ownership. There's a few things I want to point out when it comes to home ownership, but first let's look at California. Only 35% of our population participates in home ownership. We're the only community in California, besides maybe our Native American brothers and sisters. Remember, we're twins. Us and Native Americans, we're twins when it comes to everything that this nation has done to us to make it rich, right? Home ownership, 35%. We got to think about that. We're the only population, except our Native American brothers and sisters, who have not recovered since the Great Recession. Decimated us when it came to home ownership. Who knows someone who lost their home during the Great Recession? Uh-huh. Those adjustable mortgages killed us when it comes to home ownership. Fresno, you're even worse. Only 31%. But I want you to see something here. When you looked at our poverty rate, we have a lower poverty rate than our Latino brothers and sisters, but they have a higher home ownership rate than we do. Why? Right? So our Latino brothers and sisters can teach us a thing or two. We have got to understand that we've got to stop being consumers and start being builders and owners. A part of this is a mentality problem, a priority problem. Got them good rims living with your mama. Got every Jordan since they've come out. But can't pay your electricity bill. We have got to change things. Allensworth shows us the mentality we should be having. If we want to do something, one thing is for sure. Our community can build something out of nothing if we really want to. But usually it takes us getting mad about it first, though. Right? But the idea is this. We can turn this around. We have got to change the way we are viewing money. We have got to change the way we are viewing our priorities. It's not about now, it's about tomorrow. It's not about us, it's about our children. We have issues with poverty because we are not passing on nothing to the next generation. And if we are passing on something, it's a bill. It's a loan we're passing on to the next generation. We've got to get together and we've got to have a plan. Families, we need to be calling our other family members. It's time for us to build some wealth so we can have something to pass on. All right, I'll stop. Ooh, I need some water. Y'all got me mad. No, the one over there. The sparkling one. Thank you. Why? Why is that? Because if we don't, we're spending all of our money on rent. We're making other people rich. Which is what happens when you have a consumer culture. The things that we are prioritizing has no real wealth tied to it. It just makes you look good. Makes you feel good. But while you're looking good and feeling good, you asking to borrow someone else's money. Okay, I'll stop. Okay. We have the highest, we're talking about severe rent burden, meaning we are paying more than 50% of our income on rent. We are the highest in California at 37%. What should we be paying on our paying for our housing? What percentage? No more than 30%. 37% of our population in California is paying more than 50%. You ready for Fresno? Almost half of you are paying more than 50% of your hard-earned money just trying to keep a roof over your head. Which is why once you start getting to this area, you have got to start rearranging things so that you can start being on a path to own something that's more stable so your rent don't increase. $44%, y'all. Then let's talk about the digital divide. Again, in terms of our first 5 populations, our younger populations, right? We are more likely to not have the technology necessary to be able to experience the full educational experiences and the full access to knowledge and other things than other communities as well. Not too much higher, but still higher. That's in Fresno County. Now, the percentage of those that are 200% below the poverty line, that's where it skyrockets. If you're 200% of below the poverty line, 71% of our children don't have access to the technology that they need. And then, of course, a share of parents, how many children, percentage of young children who are growing up with 2 parents, 1 parent, or no parent. Again, no one is coming close in terms of those. We have almost 10% of our population of children, 0 to 5, are growing up with even no parent. Right? We know how important our big mamas are, our grandmothers. When you even look at, of course, we are the only population in California who has more single-parent households than we do have 2-parent households, which also attributes to poverty levels, because if you only have one source of income, it's harder to make it, right? But we also have to give it up to our single mothers and single fathers who continue to hold it down, right? But at the same time, we have got to do something about this as well. So y'all see California. You ready, Fresno? We go from 49% to 66% in Fresno County. This is all to make sure we understand what's going on in our communities, y'all. The decisions that we make, the barriers that we face. Which is why all of this translates into wealth. The more education we have, the more likely we can have opportunities to build wealth. The more two-parent households we have, more likelihood that we can build wealth. The more we own that is worth something, right? And right now, there's not very many things that is worth something. If you don't own land, you're going to have a problem in terms of wealth. Them cars don't build wealth. Have you ever turned in your car and you're like, what? I paid this and you said it's worth what? What are we prioritizing? We laugh at those people. We laugh at those people who, in our eyes, have them old jacked up cars, but they own their own home. They laughing at you. Right? Think about this. Think about this. So when we look at wealth, and a part of this wealth is also, the majority of this is due to assets being passed on to the next generation. This is not just me. This is an accumulation of my lineage. The homes that were passed on. The life insurance plans that were passed on. Them stocks and bonds that were passed on. Them retirements accounts. Oh, see, look at that. That's a good representation. We hanging on from a thread, baby. We hanging on, Lord. Lord. Lord, give me some will. Lord. Oh. Just leave it down. You sure? Yeah, we're fine. We need some help. Lord, help us. Get us some wealth. The question is, what are you going to pass on to your children and grandchildren? Just right here in this room. What are you passing on? Remember, it's not about what jobs you have, what title you have, what community you live in. If you are not passing anything in the positive to the next generation, you have failed in your life and your responsibility. Our ancestors, African tradition says, African culture says that everything we do is for the next generation. But if you're spending more time on your own comfort and your own well-being, instead of passing it on to your next generation, then we will have failed in our sacred responsibility. So as you can see here, again, we are at the bottom of wealth building. And a lot of that also is, by the way, many of those redlining communities, right, weren't able to pass on that much wealth, wasn't able to pass on much. It was designed that way. It was designed that way, which also means that their strategy worked. And it was well done. But if you now can do better, and you know better, then hopefully we'll do better. And then I'm going to end with this, and then we're going to move on. The percent of workforce in future-ready jobs. The jobs of the future. And all that means is these are stable or growing, automation resilient, and are paying a livable wage. We're talking about the health sector, right? We're talking about those jobs that we know are resilient when it comes to automation is not affecting those jobs. We know they will be there long into the future. Look at our percentage when it comes to that. We still have work to do. Did that make you feel good? I was just waiting to see if someone was crazy enough to say, yeah. That's the state of our village, y'all. So what is the Black Caucus planning on doing to be able to do that? And first, we're going to talk about our reparations push. We're going to bring on back up our chair to begin to talk about what is our plan to help with this. But remember, we can do all the things in the world in the state legislature, but if each and every one of us are not doing things to move the needle and we have a plan on moving that needle, it's not going to just happen. We have to have a plan and we have to sacrifice in order to make sure that plan is successful. Instead of restore, let's do the reparations package. That way we can talk more about what we're going to be doing. Chair Wilson, y'all.
Can we give a round of applause to Dr. Jackson for that? And I want to comment on just kind of two takeaways for me and for all of you. If you felt in that moment when you were seeing the slides, I felt like, it was heavy at some points, right? Because we are not doing that well. But I also feel like it's a sense of validation that I ain't crazy. Right? What I've been feeling in my community is accurate. Because sometimes we feel like when you feel the weight, of the world on your shoulders, you think you're the only one. And you realize, it's like you are not the only one. That is real. And the part about that the strategy worked. These are systemic policies that put you in this situation, that put our community in this situation. So there's this validation that we ain't crazy for feeling this way because data shows it, data supports it, but also realizing that the strategy worked. And that is the purpose of the California Legislative Black Caucus, is to upend that strategy. To have, yes, that was worth the clap. Thank you, ma'am. to upend that strategy. And that's the work of the Reparations Task Force, to document it, to create suggestions about future policy that would upend the legacy of slavery, would upend the generations of discrimination and racism, to upend the systemic policies that has been formed to keep you less than, to keep you, as was noted on the chart, when it talked about family wealth, to keep you at the bottom. And not just us as black folks, but the Native American community, Latino, anybody who wasn't white. Anybody who wasn't white. So just as you think about that portion where we wanted to level set and talk about the data, that is really to show you the data supports what you are feeling when you are out in the community. Data supports what you have seen in your own family, where some of you in this room have quote unquote made it, but you're like the one in the family that made it, right? And so I wanted you to make sure you caught that, and that now we're moving into strategy. And so we have this legislative package. So let me tell you something. When the Reparations Task Force came out, they came out with a draft report in June of 2022, and the chair at that time, Senator Bradford, gave it to the Black Caucus at the time and said, "Hey, this is the final report is going to come out next year. Let's get to work. Start thinking about what you want to do." When we did that, we were at $100 billion surplus as a state. When the final report came out in June of 2023, we were in the exact opposite situation. We had I think it was a $50 billion deficit at that time. So we started thinking about what would our legislative packet look like. And so we wanted to make sure that we had capacity. We were using this now deficit time, recognizing we weren't able to go for the big because there just wasn't the resources to do it. Now, doesn't take away from the state's obligations to Black Californians, just recognizing timing. And so we wanted to use that timing of where we were in a deficit to put forth a package that did a few things. And so the first, as was noted, I think I moved it maybe, is to ensure that we educate our legislators, that we work through eliminating our legal barriers to achieve greater reparations. And when we say greater reparations, there are levels to it. Just like the song said, there's levels to it. Because reparations at its root word is to repair. To repair our community from generations, like was said, of slavery, racism, and discrimination. Also be mindful of the state budget to be able to get things done within our means. Everybody should live within their means, and to ensure there were early wins. And so we put forth our legislative package to be able to do that. And so these are the number of bills that were brought forth by various different members. Each member carried a bill. And we also had, we started with a resolution that detailed the harms and document at the legislative level the work of the Reparations Task Force. Got that done, and then moved into a bill that was led by Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer, authored by him. All of the legislators joint authored the bills, but the apology for those harms. And that is working its way through, and we expect the governor to sign that. And then there's a number of bills, as was noted there, that we've worked through in terms of our reparations package. And I think, does this include our new one for the Freedmen's Agency? Is that a little farther? Yeah. So we have a new bill that is also a Freedmen Agency that we included in the reparations package. And so just going from top to bottom quickly, the repeal Proposition 209, this is led by Assemblymember Jackson, ACA 7. We are working and navigating through that. This may get reintroduced, and eventually it will be on the ballot for you. And this, yes. This is extremely important because there's lots of things that are suggestions and policies from the Reparations Task Force that we just legally cannot do without the repeal of Prop 209. So it's extremely important that a portion of that is repealed in a way that is meaningful. We have our rehabilitation and CDCR. This is one that was extremely important because we have the, California, this is California Department of Corrections, but there's an R on there, rehabilitation. And so sometimes we send people to prison and they got sent there because of the trauma in their own family or community, and then they get re-traumatized. and trauma begets trauma. And so really focusing on when people are going to prison, that they are coming out, being able to be productive and have an opportunity to give back to their community versus traumatize their community. And this is important to the Black Caucus. We've been on the forefront of criminal justice reform, primarily because we are disproportionately in there. We only make up 6 to 7% of the population. Yet when you look at how many of us are in prison, and that is by design, right? Another one that's going to be on the ballot is one that I got an opportunity to introduce, ACA 7. This was ACA 3 previously. We didn't get it across the finish line in the previous session. We were able to get it across the finish line this time. And now, this is the End Slavery Act, and now it is on your ballot as Proposition 6. And this says that our current Constitution, which matches the federal Constitution, that slavery is prohibited and voluntary servitude is prohibited except for a punishment of a crime. ACA 7 Proposition 6 removes that exception, which is a nationwide effort, because as you know, if you've watched the Netflix documentary, that was used to have free slave labor. And so we're taking that out the Constitution. It is a value statement, but it has real consequences or real impact in our correction system. So I encourage you to vote on Proposition 6. Joan Sawyer had another bill about funding community-driven solutions to decrease, crime in our neighborhoods and to ensure that people are safe. We have our property taking, as we know that the California, free state on paper, but not in action, took land from Black folks. This is a bill to ensure that we document that and then restore that land to those families. Ensuring that we're accessing career technical education, that Black folks or descendants of slaves are prioritized. Moving into prohibiting discrimination based on, what was this one? Sorry, let me get it closer. But I'm trying to remember this bill. Oh, this is an extension. This is done by Dr. Weber. Excuse me, I hear Jackson laughing in the background. But we had the natural, your natural hair, right? And how there was discrimination in the workplace and such. Well, we saw that in sports. And I know it went viral of them cutting locks off of kids. And so this means there's no discrimination in sports. Also addressing food injustice, ensuring that we eliminate food deserts. And a lot of times grocery stores up and close where they are paying people to buy food and they up and close. And this allows for some protections around that. There's a book ban. You can read books that are rooted in KKK and discrimination, but you can't read Nelson Mandela, Book of Freedom, in prisons. And so this eliminates that. That eliminates books bans. It allows for a secondary review. We also have the Mandela Act, which reduces involuntary servitude for certain individuals, solitary confinement for certain individuals, as well as a food and medicine bill, recognizing that part of our issue with our bodies is about the food that we intake. And so allowing Medi-Cal and other private insurance to actually prescribe food for you instead of pills for you, and that be covered and paid for. Eliminating barriers to licensure for those with criminal records. So when we give you a second chance, we put you out in a society that says, well, you've been in prison, we're not going to do nothing with you. And so this says that that barrier to licensure is removed. So if you do get a second chance to get out of prison, you have an opportunity to actually make a living. And last but not least, part of the overall reparations package is ensuring that you get financial aid for career education for descendants of slaves. And this is particularly for those that are descendants of slaves. And that's why the Freedmen's Bureau is important. This agency is important because to know, well, who's a descendant of slave. And so we are really excited about our package this year. We were able to get, even in a bad budget year, $12 million set aside for reparations work, specifically about educating people on it, and as well as some early funding for the Freedmen's Agency and other work related to these particular bills. This is our first year of a multi-year effort to get these bills across the finish line, and it's going to take all of us. It is a heavy lift. If you look at, there's hundreds of recommendations from the task force. You can't do that all in 1 year. It's going to take multiple years, and we need to make sure that we have a solid budget at the state to be able to meet its obligations. Remember, reparations is not a gift. It is not a gift. It is an obligation. It is an obligation by our government to be able to repair the damage to those that are descendants of slaves and Black Californians and black people across this nation as a whole because of the harms that have been done. So we're going to move into a Q&A period where you have an opportunity to ask us questions specifically about reparations, the bill package that we have, future legislation, anything that you've heard of. We are rounding out the end of a session, August 31st. On Saturday, we will be in session. We are going to end this year, and we hope to get all these across the finish line and to the governor's desk, which he'll sign by October. We have multiple more of these series. You're going to have an opportunity to give feedback to us. We're going to get all that, digest that, and we expect in the new year to be able to introduce another set of legislation to tackle this important issue. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Corey Jackson, or Dr. Jackson, as we transition to Q&A.
We have had, for those of you who have questions that you want to submit, again, you should have had some cards to be able to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question so you can write them down. We'll get a card to you. And if you have a card, we have some folks as well. Daryl, are you around as well that will be helping to get the cards? And as we transition to this, is a few things that it's important to know. One is, when you think about reparations, there are three parts of what consists of reparations, right? The first is acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we did some stuff to you, and we did it on purpose. Mm-hmm. And we took the time out to plot and plan your destruction, which is what one of our bills did with Dr. Akilah Weber, who introduced that bill and will be sent to the governor's desk. The second part is apology. We apologize for what we have done, right? Apology, sometimes some of us need to hear an apology to be able to get over that anger, to get over, help to get over and heal from a lot of that trauma, right? And then there's the atonement. Now we know, we admit we've done some stuff to you, we apologize for that, and now we're going to make up for it, right? Now when we make up for it, it is in various forms. Atonement does not just mean a check. I'm going to say this again. Atonement doesn't just mean a check. It also means we are going to eliminate the barriers that your children will have to face. Again, there are still things in our state constitution. There are still laws on the books, systemic things, that even if you or your children get that check won't go very far. Right? And so we have got to eliminate legal barriers. We have got to improve other things that will allow us to be able to build wealth and keep that wealth, and open up access to a whole amount of things, and access to knowledge and wisdom that other communities have access to, in order to make this economy work for our community as well. So again, cards are going around. Just raise your card if you are done with your question, and we'll make sure that we get those, or if you also need some of those too. And then also, what's going to also be important to understand is a part of us being here is to make sure that we connect you with us so that you know how your representatives vote on these bills, right? And so that you can be a part of advocating for these bills as well. Very important for you to be involved as well. And so I will hand it over to Mark Philpart, who will facilitate our Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jackson. Thank you, Chair Wilson. Excited to hear from some of you now. We're going to take these questions and have a brief conversation with our legislative champions to learn a little bit more about what it is you are curious about and their responses to those questions. The first question is around red line communities. So for most of the land in Fresno was already purchased by out-of-town people and those who do not live in our community. How do we think about redlining within the context of people who are newcomers buying land and enjoying prosperity, where those who are native-born don't have access to those same opportunities?
I mean, I think that this is a problem that's not just happening in Fresno. It's happening across our state, where people who are born in a community are not able to live in the community they were born in. We talk a lot about aging in place, and typically we're talking about seniors that once they've raised their family, can they then stay in the same community because there's not enough senior housing. But really, aging in place now extends all the way down to our high schoolers who, when they graduate, are they able to live in their community? Our college students, when they come back to their communities, can they live in their communities? And we're seeing this problem across the state. And I think that's why there have been policies and efforts by the current administration in terms of increasing home ownership as it relates to the state partnering with an individual homeowner to help them buy a home and carrying their deposit, their down payment, and then having that be a second that is just sits on the home until it's time to sell, and then partnering with it. We've been in conversations with we as a Black Caucus have been in conversations with not only the administration, but others within departments about carving a portion of that out for Black Californians. And that conversation has been progressing. I will say it's not as much as we wanted to. One part of this original program, and it's the California Dream, is it Dream Act? Dream Home? I'm looking at you, Dr. Jackson.
Oh.
What's the name of the Dream for All.
Dream for All.
Dream for All. Thank you. Because initially it was intended to help lift up people of color, including Black folks, and we saw that only like 1% of Black folks got something out of that first program. And so they are working to increase those numbers, but we've had fruitful conversations, and we'll see how it works out to ensure that Black Californians are able to take advantage of that program and be able to have home ownership. And that's the only way, as Dr. Jackson noted earlier, is that the way to build wealth is owning things. And so the California has to play a role in ensuring that you have the opportunity to purchase homes and be competitive with those that are outside of your area being able to purchase those same homes or property.
Thank you. There are lots of questions about gentrification and redlining, and one of the things that is coming up and is very clear is that there is a community here in Southwest Fresno that is concerned about that makeup of the community really changing. And can you hear me? I feel like there's the question is, how do we stop the process of this demographic change that's happening in Southwest Fresno? What are the levers and opportunities for us to be able to have that community remain, but also build some power and respect within the confines of how the city is operating.
Well, I think the first thing that needs to happen is, number one, the question also is the community banding together to join resources to purchase that land so others don't purchase it, right? I mean, the only way to stop gentrification is not necessarily to just try to stop things from being, built there, but it's also is, what black organization is trying to make sure that we hold those assets as a community, right? There's certain things that we have to do and we can only do together to be able to make that happen. And so, I would just say that. And then secondly is, as you saw the heat map of Fresno, we're starting to disperse more. And sometimes we are moving out of the very communities that we will now complain about being gentrified. So the question is, are we willing to stay and hold the ground, band together to purchase assets within the community so that it can stay the way and even improve the way we envision it as a people?
And just to add and echo in some remarks is that, gentrification, the first part of it is about investments in a community. And so you want investments in Southwest Fresno. But to Dr. Jackson's point, you want to be a part of that and do the purchasing. And so there has to be a combining of resources. If you cannot do it on your own, combining as a part of the community, like we're going to buy that thing, or getting an organization, as was said, to buy that particular property. But it is about moving where you want to move. And we see this as was noted on the heat map earlier. We saw this disbursement. We're seeing it across the state. People in Southern California, where we primarily were, are dispersing across the state. You see this migration, not just people talk about a migration outside of California, but black folks have been migrating across the state. I look at my own county. My county, Solano County, is the highest percentage of black people in the entire state. Highest percentage of black people live in my county where I live. We have over 14%. So of all 58 counties, Solano County is number one. And why is that? It wasn't always that way. It was people who lived in the Bay Area who wanted something affordable, then began to leave the Bay Area. So they left, Oakland and Alameda County and San Francisco County and all of that, and they moved to Solano County to find a place to live. And now, when you are in Solano County, you see a lot of black folks everywhere you go, right? Beautiful thing. But they found a place to live. And then in the Bay Area, you saw this gentrification, right? Because they were displaced in efforts to migrate. And I think you see the same thing in Fresno, where people looking for a place to live are moving out of the area. Why? Because, when we think of the public schools in Fresno, they were typically undervalued. When you think of, I think I was a whole adult before Food Max or whatever it is. I can't remember what it is now, before we had a grocery store. Before that, it was corner grocery stores. My whole time living on the west side of Fresno, in King of Kings and all those, we had corner grocery stores. We didn't have real grocery. There was lack of investment. So I would say that now that you see the investment come, don't leave. Find a way to stay. And even if you can't stay, find a way to own so that you can give an opportunity for other people to stay. And before we get to the next question, is you don't just have to own a home. Y'all know you can own an apartment building and provide homes for others. Duplex, triplex, multiple. You can own an apartment building and provide stable housing for others. And we know the most stable housing is a mortgage. It doesn't change. Nobody changes it on you. So we encourage you to own.
I would also say, I know you thought we were moving to the next question, but our African brothers and sisters can teach us something about this. You all know that California is helping to lead the way when it comes to guaranteed income. And there's a lot of studies being done on the value of guaranteed income. But when guaranteed income came to the people of Kenya, they did something interesting. Instead of them just taking the check for themselves and doing what they wanted from it, they understood that we can actually have greater investments, that when for 1 month, if instead of me taking that check, the community agrees to give all of their checks to one person for that month, then guess what? Now they can purchase something of value, greater value, and then that person who has received that next month, guess what? They give their check to someone else. And they all band together to help make sure that everyone succeeds greater than if they would have done it themselves. Think about that. That's what it means to be black. That's what it means to be African. And we've lost that part of our culture. It was stripped from us that we need to return to. Right? Now we're saying, oh no, I am not going to be moving, I ain't going to be moving back into with my mama. Oh no, I can't. And grandma's saying, I ain't moving back into with my kids. They ain't going to tell me what to do. But guess what? Other communities are doing that. And because other communities are doing that, they actually have something to show for it. Mm-hmm. They're banding their incomes together to achieve something that they could not do by themselves.
I'll give a real example from my own county. It's a high population of Filipinos because of Travis Air Force Base, which is how my family got there, the gateway to the Pacific. And we have a rising trend for the whole time I've been there, rising trend of Filipino ownership, and they do the exact same thing. A lot of them live together, multi-generation in their household, but what they do is when it's time for someone to buy the house, everybody gives to the down payment. Everybody gives to the down payment. The whole families, all the families, friends, everybody's an auntie or uncle. They all give to the down payment so they can have the house. And then the next person, when it's their time to buy the house, everybody gives. And they don't have, it's not part ownership. That person fully, wholly owns it. But it's a part of the community because they know when they lift up one member of the community, the entire community is uplifted. And as Dr. Jackson was saying, it's something that we've lost through the stain of slavery because they decimated us as a community. But generations in America, we know we have our pockets of community where we come together. But it hasn't been about wealth creation. And so we've done it to keep each other safe. We've done it to help each other be healthy, but we have not yet done it successfully, sustained when it comes to wealth creation. And now it is that time where we have to do that for wealth creation. Because if one is uplifted, all of us are uplifted.
Yes. All right, thank you. The principle of cooperative economics comes to mind as I think about these remarks. And, there are innovative models throughout the state, land trusts, micro lending, guaranteed income. These are things that are being deployed in other places and that we desperately need here in Fresno. And when you think about ownership, I know that there are many of you who are innovating in this space. I think about Tate Hill and Access Plus Capital. Yes, give a big round of applause to Tate and his leadership at Access Plus. I mean, I know that he's thinking about these questions and issues and trying to find solutions and drawing down resources that will allow all of you to live into this vision that Chair Wilson and Assemblymember Jackson are articulating. I want to back up just a little bit because as I'm looking at these questions, and I appreciate all of them, thank you, Fresno, for putting these forward. It occurred to me that we probably need to do a little bit of background around just the legislative process. What's a caucus? How many of them are there? How are they organized? What is the timeline in terms of introducing policy priorities. Where are we at in the cycle? Because a lot of the questions are really around some of those things. People are curious. So when is the reparations policy agenda going to be decided upon, and when is the next round of policies? So some background on that would be helpful.
We'll take it all the way back. So there are 120 legislators. 80 of them are in the Assembly, and 40 of them are in the Senate. And each of the legislators can join a caucus, and that's a group of people who are like-minded around a particular issue, and they come together and they formalize their legislative, which is the laws that they're going to create, and budget priorities. There are many caucuses. Some are centered around region. So there's a LA caucus, there's a Central Coast caucus, there's a Bay Area caucus. I'm part of the Bay Area caucus. I don't know, is there a Central Valley caucus, Dr. Urim? There, okay, all right, sorry, okay. I'm not saying they're not effective, I just didn't know they existed. Then there's a women's caucus, which is almost at parity. There are ethnic caucuses. So there are quite a few of them. We call them the diversity caucus. There is Jewish caucus, API caucus, Asian Pacific Islander. There is the Latino caucus. There is the Black caucus. As I noted earlier in my opening remarks, the Black caucus is made up of 15 individuals. 12 of them are legislators. 3 are constitutional officers. The 12 legislative members are voting members. And the 3 ex officios, 3 are constitutional ex officios officers. 10 of them are in the legislature, which includes, in the Assembly, which includes Dr. Jackson and myself. And then there are 2 senators. We have the 3 ex officios, as I noted earlier, are constitutional officers. If you can imagine, we have Black folks in charge of voting, the money, and education. So that's pretty powerful. Yes, and so that makes up the caucus. Then we move into the legislative calendar. We're at the tail end of that legislative calendar. Dr. Jackson, do you want to talk about the legislative calendar?
Sure. Our legislative calendar usually actually goes from January until August, in which we are introducing our bills, going through various committees, and then, of course, trying to get those bills to the governor's desk by the end of August. After that, the governor has September, all of September, to be able to decide whether he will sign those bills or not. And so generally what we have done is, starting in October, November, as a Black Caucus, we begin to start looking at what will be our package for reparations, and then we conclude that work by January so that we can begin to decide who's going to be introducing those bills and what is our strategy around those bills. This is how, now some of you may be wondering, are they taking reparations seriously? Let me tell you this, you don't know how seriously people are taking it once you start asking them to show them the money. And let me tell you something. Remember, we were in a very bad budget year. But Chair Wilson got the governor to agree. We don't care how bad this budget is. We're going to set aside some money for reparations. And we got it. So are we being taken seriously? Absolutely. Will we be getting a slice of the pie so that we can implement reparations? So far, yes. And if not, you're going to see
some folding chairs, maybe?
You'll see some folding chairs thrown around. Okay? And so just know they know we ain't playing. Okay? So that we can get those things done.
And I was being silly about the folding chairs, you know.
I'm not.
He's not. I will tell you. I'll tell you a little funny story before I say what. So, if you guys, we just had the 1 year anniversary of what was it, Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
The Montgomery Brawl. But when it happened, no joke, a week of it happening, we were still in session. We have a 2 year session. We're in the end of the second year. No joke. Dr. Jackson comes to the legislators. We all sit in various places on the floor in the Capitol. And he comes with this little plastic bag with something black in it. We couldn't make it out. And so he's passing it out to us, and we open it, and literally it is a folding chair. It is a black, little tiny folding chair. So when we first were doing the reparations, we would take the little folding chair and we would just put it on our desk as a reminder to all the other legislators that we were working on a reparations bill that day and we wanted to see their votes. But we're being silly. It was done in jest. But as he said, he was serious. It was done in jest. But I will say this, and so I say, you know, we're talking about the folding chairs and forcing, but we have had a governor, we've had a lieutenant governor, we have had a speaker and a pro tem. And even though we've had changes in leadership over this session, 2 different speakers and pro tems, all of them have been committed to reparations. All of them have taken it seriously. All of them have been mindful when it comes to policy. They've communicated early when there were concerns about different pieces of it, because at a macro level, yes, it's good, devil's in the details. Every single one of them in my conversation with them as chair has been responsive and good. So I want to give a round of applause to our leadership in the state of California, because they have been present and active. And so even in this struggle to get reparations, every piece of reparations across the finish line, I want you all to be mindful in your advocacy to not demonize, because there's no need for that yet. And when there is need for that, we will put up the flare that people are being silly and people are being funny. We will toss it up. We will get the chair, we'll toss it up, and y'all get the notice. But right now, they are being responsive. Right now, they are being collaborative. And so I just want to give a shout out to our leadership for that. And the moment they're not, you all will be the first to know. But we have had, as I talked about the legislators who were here earlier, or they're still here, but the legislators who were standing with us earlier, they have been standing with us. And there's so many our colleagues in the state legislature that are. Now, there is a group, most of them conservative, who are not, who, as Dr. Jackson noted, they were like, well, you're equal now, right? Not thinking about equity, not thinking about the chart that said, you know, white folks still, even though they're almost a minority in the California, still wealth is higher, disproportionately higher than black folks, Latin Americans, and our Native American brothers and sisters. And so I just want us to be mindful that we talk about the struggle, but we really do have partners and collaborators on the other side of this.
Thank you. And Fresno, I'm going to have to ask for your grace, because there are way more questions than we have time for, and I'm trying to summarize and combine and group questions in
and you
ways.
have 2 legislators here who don't know how not to talk.
They are verbose. They are verbose, but they're giving you all the information, which is wonderful. That's what we need. So I hope you'll forgive me in trying to summarize all of these. Final question is kind of a 2-parter, which is really about pathways to participation. Many people are asking, how can they get involved? Many people are asking, how can they get young people involved? What are the ways for people to participate following this conversation? How should they think about participation? The other is about solidarity. People are asking, how can the API community be in solidarity? How can the Latino community be in solidarity? And other groups. So I want to see if you can speak to that, and then we'll transition. We have a poem that'll be offered, and I want to make sure we can get to the other elements of the program.
Well, I would say that to get involved before you leave here, you're going to be given a link, a QR code, to be able to sign up for our alerts. And you will be given the opportunity when we say, hey, Fresno, make sure you're reaching out to your state legislators to make sure that they're committed to such and such a bill, right? You sign up for that to be able to do so. I think secondly would be, don't forget about the data. Don't leave here with a commitment to yourself on what are you going to do on the ground. Because a lot of these things are not going to be moved by legislation, to be honest. A lot of it is going to be moved on how you organize yourselves on the ground and create an agenda for yourselves to be able to do that, right? And so I would just say there'll be opportunities to sign up, but then also remember, don't just go back after this and then nothing gets done, right? It's going to take a lot of sacrifice, leadership, and some hard work to be able to move the needle.
Agreed. And so I think social media is key, following what the Black Caucus is doing at the state capitol as it relates to social media, as it relates to reparations and some of the work that we do that are Black Caucus priorities that might not directly be related to reparations, but are definitely about uplifting Black Californians, and make sure you're sharing that and getting that out in the community. Staying engaged and involved. This is a cyclical business to us. We introduced bills by mid-February. We work on them through committee and get them across the finish line in late summer, either August or September, depending on which part of the session we're in. And so following that trajectory, reaching out not only to your legislators, but legislators across the state. Because it takes a majority to get these bills passed, and encouraging, we all don't just have family here in Fresno. We have family across our state, right? And so activating your family and your friends in other parts of the state to be a part of that, especially in red districts, where you're going to have to push that legislator really hard to be able to step up and stand up, for Black Californians. And then being a part of the conversation when we're doing that legislation, going to committee hearings or giving comments, submitting letters about how you want to see that changed. Because when we introduced it in February, it is not dry, it is wet. There is an opportunity to change it. And so when we introduce legislation, we want your input to make it better before it gets to the governor's desk at the end of session. And so I would say, echoing the remarks of being on social media, staying engaged, and then providing feedback. And I'll end my comment with, I'm a woman of faith, and I always think about that scripture that says, faith without works is dead. You can believe all you want to, but if you're not doing any work, it is not going to happen. It is dead. So please make sure you believe in us that we're doing the work, but you got to do the work too. And so as Dr. Jackson said, have an agenda for Fresno. Have an agenda of how you're going to transform Fresno to be a community that uplifts Black Californians. And yeah, maybe by 2060 they're only going to be 4%, but those 4% are worth it to have a high quality of life. So ensure that you are part of making sure that not only you have a high quality of life, but the generations that come after you. And we all know, thank you for that clap, but we all know when we uplift Black Californians, we are uplifting everyone. Everyone. Thank you.
And I forgot one part of the question was also how other brothers and sisters can participate. Let me just say this. The diversity caucuses, LGBTQ caucus, API caucus, Latino caucus, Jewish caucus, when one of our communities are under attack, they know they're about to mess with all of us, right? And that's the same thing we need to make sure that we're doing throughout California. And it has nothing to do with whether that issue affects us as for a particular community. The idea is if another human being is under attack, the rest of us need to have their back, whether it affects us or not. And then vice versa, when we're under attack, we're going to hope that our other brothers and sisters have our back. That's how we have acted in the legislature for the most part, except law enforcement issues. We still got to work on that. But I think overall, that's exactly what we have done. And so if you're a participant if you're a part of the Latino community or the API community or others, number one, thank you for being here. Let's give it up to all of our allies that are here in the room. But then also know that we will have your back too, right? And showing up is part of the first step. Utilizing social media is the second step. But don't stop there. Don't just be a social media warrior, right? Get up out of the house and get up in these meetings and get up all these things so that we can do some heavy lifting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please show up. The Black Caucus loves when people show up at the Capitol, when people are at hearings making their voice heard and standing up for their community. So don't just limit your engagement to the confines of the city. You can go to them and reach, have a far broader impact on the state by virtue of doing that. So encourage you to be engaged in that way as well. Please.
I'll just note one thing. You guys, by showing up today, cemented that Fresno will always be a part, whether I'm chair or whether I'm even a part of the Black Caucus. I mean, meaning because there's term limits. Mm-hmm. But you, by showing up today and doing what you've done, you've cemented that the Black Caucus will be in Fresno in perpetuity. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Please give Chair Wilson and Assemblymember Jackson a hand. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Joyce Dale to the stage to share a poem on reparations. Joyce, please join us.
Good afternoon. My name is Joyce Dale. I am district representative for Senator Ana Caballero, and I'm also a poet. I call myself the poetress. So I want to share this poem I wrote called Woke. We won't be so easily divided, not like we were before. People are waking up. They're standing up. We're not taking it anymore. As we become woke, all across the nation, a nation that claims we're free, I stand taller with a greater purpose to unapologetically be me. I was conditioned by the world around me to believe struggling is okay, with or without an education. That's just the Black American way. To be woke doesn't mean I'm angry or even that I'm mad. I'm just more aware of my surroundings and the reality that's really sad. 40 acres and a mule was a broken promise that could have saved a nation from the hatred and violence we still face through systemic discrimination. It was a path to restorative justice that we may never see. Reparations is simply the right thing to do for us to ever truly be free. Our freedom to vote is being challenged, along with our freedom to learn. Hatred is growing all across America, but hatred already had its turn. We'll continue to vote. We'll continue to teach our children about the history. We will never repeat it. They are kings and queens with the power to change the world the way that we see it. It's time for love to be the common factor. We can do it. Yes, we can. Start with your home, in your neighborhood. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Woo! Fresno, you got some heat. Let's give Ms. Dale another round of applause. Let's give Ms. Dale another round of applause. Thank you. Incredible, incredible. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dale. Thank you, Senator Caballero, for bringing such a luminary to this event. Really appreciate those words. And there were questions about engagement. We're rounding out the kind of final segment of our day here, and we want to dive into engagement. How do you stay connected? So the Black Freedom Fund, we support a series of networks. One of those networks is the California Black Power Network. How many of y'all know the California Black Power Network? Woo, all right. Shout out to the California Black Power Network. We work with them to ensure that they're able to build an ecosystem of power building organizations operating for change throughout the state. This year, they did a reparations survey. in partnership with L. Norwood and Associates in Catalyst, California, they conducted the largest reparations survey of Black Californians, and they did it this year, started last year, October of 2023, and went all the way through to March of 2024. The goal was to explore how important issues of reparations are to Black voters, and how this issue will impact Black voters' motivation to participate in elections, and how support or opposition to reparations will impact Black voters' support for their candidates. Okay, so they surveyed 1,300 Black folks with what they call a 3% margin of error. They used text messaging, websites, all kinds of outreach strategies, and what they found was 94% of Black folks support reparations, right? 94%. So I know y'all, have folks who you think aren't for it and are opposed. 94% is a very, very, very significant number, and that does not change based on party affiliation. So yes, even those of you who support, I ain't gonna say his name, y'all know who I'm talking about though, y'all still want reparations, right? And that's important, 90% say reparations is a motivator to vote. 84% say that candidates' stance on reparations would impact their support. So if a candidate ain't acting right on reparations, Black folks are likely to change their position on their support for that candidate, which is a critical thing for us to take note of. So we want to share that with you because we want you to be aware of these figures. We want you to engage with the California Black Power Network. You can learn more about this survey on their website. We want you to follow them, engage with them, connect with them. And so all of their information will be up here on this next slide. Use the QR code here, and you'll be able to download more information. We'll also make sure that you get this email to you along with all the other information you've heard today. There has been lots of data presentations. Many of you have asked about that. That was, in fact, one of the questions. Will this data be shared? Yes, it'll be shared. It'll be in your inbox very soon, not immediately, but very soon. And then we also want to take the opportunity to get you to do a survey that was informed by the California Black Power Network, but really meant to be available to those of you who are here today to express your preferences. We want you to use this QR code to basically tell us what you think about reparations. You heard the legislators today talk about wanting to hear from you, wanting feedback. This survey that you take today will be something that they review with their peers to determine what issues they prioritize next year with this upcoming legislative session. So it is imperative for all of you. I don't even see everybody with their phone out. I'm gonna stop. Take out your phone, please. I know y'all who ain't got your phone out, I know you got a phone. Come on, take out your phone. Please, put your camera on. Point your camera at the screen, and when you see that little yellow square light up around the QR code, click the little link and take the survey, because your feedback, your input matters. We're holding this segment of the agenda because we need to hear from you, and they want to hear from you. They want to make sure they're getting input about what it is you want to see. Oh, yeah. So if you way in the back, then you received this handout during your registration process at the front table. Please use that paper, that handout, to go ahead and access this survey. I realize that the distance on the camera might not work for you to be able to scan the QR code from where you're sitting. So please use the handout to be able to access the survey. Okay, and I'm being told that you can zoom in with your camera. I don't know how to do all of that. I think you got to do some of that, finger motion stuff, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Are folks got it? Folks got the survey? Yes? Okay. All right. You know, I'm from a call and response culture, y'all. I got to hear something back from y'all. People tired. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to leave it up for just one more minute. And while we leave it up, I'm going to ask our upcoming panel to get settled. Monita Porter from the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, come on down. Lanisha Senegal from Hope Vision View, come on down. We're excited to be in conversation with y'all. This next panel is on addressing the wealth gap through small business development. So we heard a lot about the wealth gap earlier. We're going to dive into a brief conversation with some of your illustrious community leaders to talk about how business development is a part of closing that wealth gap. How can people build assets, and what are the levers and mechanisms that are needed in order for you and others in your family and your community to be able to take advantage of opportunities. We are going to transition from this slide here, but I want to make sure that all of you are good. If you're good, say, I'm good, I got it. All right, okay. Thank you. Please, another round of applause for our panelists, Monita Porter, Lanisha Senegal. Thank you. Oh. We ain't got insurance, brother. Hold on, look, you can't have you tripping. All right, thank you both. It's so good to see you. Want to just have a brief conversation here that allows us to establish a connection between what people heard around reparations and the racial wealth gap and how it manifests in Fresno, and also outline opportunities for community engagement to close the wealth gap, and also hear a little bit about what are the programs and policies that people should know about. So I want to just first turn to y'all to introduce yourselves, give people a sense. I think everybody knows y'all. Y'all know these folks, but I want to have them brag on themselves just a little bit and just give a more full introduction for who they are and what they do. So Lanisha, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So my name is Lanisha Senegal, and I am a advocate for entrepreneurs. I launched a small business incubator, Vision View, really in the heart and spirit of seeing how myself as an entrepreneur and as a mother of 5, needing a space to just kind of navigate the journey of, being an entrepreneur, but not having all of the resources and access to a lot of the officials and services that we all need in order to scale our businesses. And so creating that space so that people like me will have access to be in, one space for community to grow and build your business.
Yeah, so my name is Monita Porter. I'm the Deputy Director at the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. I am just very passionate. I've always been, if you met me, I'm very passionate about the Black community, very passionate about assisting Black businesses in their sustainability in the community, and through the mission of the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, that's what we do. All of our programs, everything that we offer is all for the benefit of the Black entrepreneur.
Thank you. Well, I wonder if we could start there. What are you offering? How are you working to repair harm and facilitate economic opportunity in the region?
Yeah, absolutely. So we offer a plethora of programs. We have incubator accelerator programs for entrepreneurs at all stages. So if you're just starting out, or if you're a seasoned business owner, we have a place for you where you can learn, you can grow with other entrepreneurs that are like-minded. And we bring in subject matter experts to help facilitate that incubator. Lanisha was one of our facilitators of one of the very first incubator class that we had. We also offer technical assistance, which is a big deal. Technical assistance is a fancy term for business support services. What business support services means is if you need assistance with marketing, if you need access to capital, if you need whatever you need to assist your business in its growth stages. We know that our Black businesses are doing the best that they can. You know, they're trying to survive. They're trying to push their business out, and they don't have all of the resources to do so. So at the Chamber, we provide technical assistance, and if we don't have the TA to offer, we have a what we call business resource partners that we network with, that we can put you in contact with to make sure that, you know, at every stage of your business that there's a connection that can be made. Outside the entrepreneurship realm, we also work with the California Black Power Network. We are boots on the ground. We are very grassroots. We have taken that survey that they just displayed out to the community. We have knocked on doors. Doors have been shut in our face. So when you see our Black boys, our Black girls coming to your doors, please open your doors and speak to them. We have a group of young folks that's doing that. So, and also, if you're interested in learning more and seeing how you can be a part of that, please see us at the Chamber. Capacity is one of our biggest barriers. So if you have young folks that you would like to put in position to speak about some of the things that you learned about today, we can offer that at the Chamber.
Can I just say one thing, Monita, because, you know, I was telling Tate Hill this last night, but the Fresno Black Metro Chamber is the only chamber of commerce that I fool with. Y'all are, you not only are doing such critical economic opportunity work, but you're building power and you're politically aligned with movement leaders who are seeking a more transformative and better future for all of us. And I think there is something to that is important to uplift, because oftentimes those viewpoints are at loggerheads. They're you know, opposing and opposing ideologies, you know, make money at the expense of everybody's welfare versus, you know, having a social justice orientation and not caring about economic opportunity. Absolutely. And I feel like y'all have really bridged those two perspectives in a powerful way. And I think it's important for people here to understand that. I would love it if you could say a little bit more about some of how you manage those tensions as you think about your work.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's very difficult. We're a team of 10. What's important for us is for sure to push the movement of Black entrepreneurship. The reason being is because it is a vehicle to assist with the wealth gap, which is why we're here today to discuss that, right? Alongside that, you know, we can't speak about the wealth gap without talking about home ownership. We can't speak about the wealth gap without talking about, of our people, without talking about food insecurities, without talking about community, without talking about mobilizing young people. So at the Chamber, we know that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And so we work very hard to make sure that we can attack at different angles. So we offer programs. We offer programs for young folks, which are that grassroots program that I'm discussing. We also offer programs for folks who are recently incarcerated, been affected by incarceration, and utilize mindset and entrepreneurship as a vehicle for them to be able to come out of a situation that was once dark and to see some options for them. So at the Chamber, I mean, like I said, we need the community, we need our partners like Lanisha, we need all hands on deck is what Dr. Little likes to say. We need all hands on deck because we're really trying to, or not even trying, we're doing the work, but we need the community to stand behind us as well.
Thank you, thank you, yep. Thank you. Lanisha, how are you working to repair harm and facilitate economic opportunity?
Yeah, so when we launched Vision View 7 years ago, I didn't have a lot of the background. Well, I had a lot of experience in working with small businesses. In fact, I've launched in the city over 160 small businesses to date. But we had created, thank you. 7 years ago when we launched, I created a plan, and I didn't really know how to implement the plan. But we had partnered with some community leaders here in Fresno under the leadership of the Drive Initiative, which was really prioritizing ways in which we can reduce harm, create equity, find ways that we can establish ownership for communities of color. And so my work as the co-sponsor for that plan, I really took it really serious to find ways in which I could ensure that we landed, vision view and stabilized and created a place in which we can have a stake in ownership in real estate and commercial property throughout the community. And so we received a 3-year grant, this was a couple years back, to research ways in which we can create, these ownership pathways. And that was in partnership with Tate Access Plus Capital, Wells Fargo, California Endowment. It was a number of partners that joined in that effort. And in that report, there was things like baby bonds, there were things like home ownership, there were things like co-ops, which was one of the other initiatives that I really researched and found that was a great way to create revenue structures so that families can create a pathway out of poverty. So between the co-op models and the community investment trust, I've been really, really focused over the last 3 years, just sticking, my head to the ground, researching, finding investors, finding ways in which we can stabilize these opportunities. So for those of us that don't know what a community investment trust model is, a CIT is really designed to allow the community to purchase and own real estate in their neighborhoods. And instead of us being renters all the time, it actually converts that property to become a community-owned property where you become a shareholder. And all of us pitch in, and instead of us, at the end of the day, there's ways in which we can do profit sharing, and we earn dividends, and all of that kind of stuff. And so it really introduces first-time investors into owning real estate in your neighborhood, but also having some of the, the profit to where you can, put that income aside and then reinvest it in things like becoming first-time home buyers and purchasing other properties in our neighborhood. And so the cool thing about what we did 7 years ago is when we purchased that property, it was at $2 million. The value of that property right now is $4.5 million. And so, thank you. And so we have $2.5 million in equity in which we can now convert that asset to go back to our communities and invest and purchase other properties in the neighborhoods. And so I'm focused on the plan. A lot of people don't understand what I'm doing and in the background, but I'm focused on the plan. And I want to make sure that our communities have access to owning real properties in our neighborhoods. And then lastly, the other part about it is creating these co-ops. So at Vision View, we're creating a international food court. We're taking over 20 cottage-based businesses, get them out of their home, create a space and a structure in which they can have access to a commercial property, to be able to build their business, to be able to have access to the commercial equipment and have access to a commercial facility in which they can grow and to continue to do their catering and grow their businesses, and then partnering with our partner at Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce that will provide the technical assistance to help them to continue to scale and grow, but really wrapping our arms around them. So I'm sticking to the plan. Is there. We've gotten a number of investment dollars over the last couple of years. California Endowment helped us to purchase the building. The Senegal Family Private Trust helped us to purchase the building, and the Central Valley Community Foundation. We all pitched in to make sure that that building will forever be owned, and it's a Black-owned asset in our community. And so just want to make sure that we can take it to the next level, and it will be sustained, and that's where we're going.
All right, I love that. How many of you have been to the campus, Vision View? All right, okay. Next time we come back, we want to see all the hands go up. Lanisha, I just want to come back to you on this next question. What are some of the roadblocks you're facing? I mean, you painted a beautiful vision, but where are there challenges, and how can people engage in removing those barriers?
So I would say one of my probably immediate roadblocks is just low-hanging fruit, things like as we're building out and retrofitting the building, things like in construction, there's always those unknowns. So we're short like $300,000 to be able to get to a place to where that food court is accessible and is completed and submitted. The contractor has all that they need to continue progress with that. But immediately upon completion of that project, we're creating 17 new jobs. We're bringing in over, again, the 20 cottage-based businesses that will have a commercial facility in which they can now have access to, and getting them outside of their homes in that facility. And we are already working with some of our community-based organizations that will also provide upskilling for some of our hard-to-employ workers. So we're boots on the ground, putting together, again, building the plan out, making sure that that facility is a staple that will be a job training hub, continue to be a forever small business hub, and forever be owned by the community. But the low-hanging fruit, again, is the cost to make sure that construction is finished. We also have a partnership that we're stirring with Gym Management, which is they own a lot of the KFCs and Wendy's and stuff like that, and they've donated, they've earmarked to donate a lot of their old equipment for the retail chains and restaurants that they have sold or they're converting to improve some of their. But for me, I mean, I think that that's great, but for Black organizations, we're always having to beg, borrow, and bootstrap. And so I would love to be able to purchase some, commercial equipment that ensures that it's energy efficient, to ensure that we have, really top-notch furniture to where we're not always begging for the hand-me-downs.
Yes. All right, we got to close that construction gap, and we got to get some new equipment, right?
Yes.
And so we might need to pass the hat before this session concludes so we could pull your $300,000 from the crowd. We know y'all got it out there. Okay. Monita, please, the same question. What are some of the roadblocks and what can be done? What can people do?
I want to say some of the roadblocks that we've experienced at the Chamber is, very similar to what Lanisha was discussing. A lot of our businesses are bootstrapping it. They are, really tending to their own network, their family and their friends, leaning on the folks around them to help sustain their business. And getting them access to capital is one of the biggest barriers that it's not a issue that our businesses here in Fresno are facing. It's a nationwide, issue for a lot of Black businesses. We partner as well with Access Plus Capital, Tate Hill, who does amazing work. Shout out to Tate. And built programs, that can assist with that gap, but there still is a gap. I have entrepreneurs that text me day and night, with their stories about, just not being able to sustain themselves. And, what we have been trying to do is just to find avenues to advocate, for fair lending, just across the board. Yeah. So that's I want to say the biggest barrier that we face for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Thank you. And I just want to ask you to offer some final remarks as we transition to the next panel. We're going to ask Dr. Angela Barfield and Dr. Jamila Finley to join us. But final remarks. I want to keep us moving, y'all, because I want to be invited back. I don't know if y'all going to have me back if I get y'all out here late. So I want to keep us moving here. But please offer some final thoughts.
So I know one of the other questions, which I was really excited to add, was around solutions in which we could really put forward to our lawmakers. Here they are in the room, and it would just be great to really have a strategic discussion on some of the things that I see in our community that would really benefit us. And so, while Vision View is not unique, it is one that is kind of stirring across the country. and models in which we have been replicating, just kind of learning more about ownership structures in real estate. But it would be great when we think about buying the block, when we think about actually having areas, when I think about going to Sacramento and you have like fixins in their entire block, is you have a restaurant and a black-owned theater and bookstore and all of those kind of stuff. Wouldn't it just be incredible to have a zone in which we could really inspire entrepreneurship and these co-op models, so creating zoning categories that support cooperative businesses and community-owned properties. I heard Sister Regina mentioned earlier, it's going to take all of us together, but sometimes it's not that we don't have the mindset to do, but if we could stir the pot to where our lawmakers are actually supporting the effort, there's a zone in which is, that's stirring the effort, it breeds that kind of sort of, collaborative enthusiasm. And so that would be easy, that would be a great thing. And then if we can actually consider these policies to create like community wealth building zones where we know that, this is our bank we actually are trying to reinvest our dollars. We're circulating our lending circles, for those who need to borrow capital as a community economic, collaboration. We can, that's the zone where that all of that community wealth building strategy is happening that would spur our community. And then just, two other ones. One I'd see in the immediate, this other one is, so those who are all owning commercial or renting out a commercial properties, wouldn't it be great to be able to have like a conversion grant to where if now you're a tenant, you can convert that grant to be like a owner-occupied building. So it would be offering grants to tenant groups that wish to purchase their buildings and convert them into cooperatives or community land trusts. And then this one, again, is just because I know that this is something that's almost putting me out of business and it's harming a lot of our families, is utility energy costs are skyrocketing. And so right now there's a bill that's coming out that's really geared towards our commercial real estate owners. That's going to prevent commercial real estate owners from raising rents. Well, I know that as a small nonprofit, the only reason why we have to raise rents is because we can't even keep pace with things like utilities. Over 55% of our income is going towards PG&E, and so I know that there was a bill that was introduced into legislation that would give Californians a break for, for these uncontrolled electricity bills. But I would love to see that we can expand that just to protect our nonprofit groups, because we're not like them. We're not like those commercial property owners. We're trying to create a space and a zone for our community to be able to have substance and sustainability. But if we're treated like a commercial tenant, then we're going out of business and we lose the value of containing that ownership model in our neighborhoods. And so if there's ways that we can also provide a grant to modernize our facilities or anything else of that nature, I would love to have those discussions further.
Thank you. Thank you. Monita, please, solutions and final thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that, reparations is very important, going back to wealth creation, the wealth gap, reparations, and tying it all in. Reparations, what that will mean for the entrepreneur is that they won't have to start from scratch, that there are some assets that they can lean on when they're building their businesses, that they are not in survival mode when they're building their businesses. They can take their energy off of, putting it into rent, and they can put it into building an asset for their family that can live on for a legacy for however long. When it comes to entrepreneurs in California, there's about 4.3 million small businesses in the state of California. 93 of those businesses are micro businesses, which means that micro businesses are those businesses that have less than 9 employees and that make up to $1 million. Those are the mom and pop shops. Those micro businesses are the businesses that we work with every day. Those are the businesses that I don't want you guys to count out. Those businesses matter in the state of California because 99% of the business that California does is with those small businesses. Does that make sense to you? Like 99% of the business done in the state is done with small businesses. And if 93% of them are micro businesses, they all matter. They do. And so reparations matters for our Black and minority businesses, for Black businesses, because with reparations, they won't have to start over. You know, when you think about the wealth gap, you think about policies that have, stood in the way as a barrier. You think about home ownership and being able to scale your business at the same rate as other ethnic groups, i.e. white ethnic groups, scaling their business. You know, we have to be able to create that competitiveness. And how do we do that? It's through engaging with organizations that can assist with building the support for your business. And so I just wanted to kind of just bring us back full circle to the conversation and knowing that all in all, what we're doing matters. We're here to empower each other. We're here to empower our businesses. I stand behind Lanisha 1,000%. I stand behind a lot of the community partners that I see in the room. Allison, what she's doing in Southwest Fresno is amazing. I stand behind Access Plus Capital. I stand behind you, Jamila. And we need each other. We can't do it without each other. So I just wanted to put that out there as a reminder. The small business is a staple. It really matters. And we can't do it alone. We have to do it in partnership. So support your local small businesses, support your local chamber, and support your community organizations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Round of applause. I'm going to ask Angela and Jamila to join me up here on the stage. I promise, Fresno, if y'all just give me 10 extra minutes, we're going to get y'all out of here. I promise. I know. Y'all don't throw no tomatoes, please. I promise you it'll be well worth it. We are going to hear from two of your more dynamic and powerful sisters in the region, Jamila Finley, who leads Breakbox Thought Collective, and Angela Barfield, who leads Black Students of California United. I'm going to ask y'all to please take your seat. And, this session, or this brief panel is really meant to kind of bring it all home and establish a connection between healing, power building, and how it manifests in Fresno, give people some sense for what opportunities for community healing might exist here, and then build awareness of some of the programs and policies that you're advancing. And I just want to say the reason why it's important to talk about healing is not only because of yesterday, but it's also because of the harms of today. So I just want to make sure that we hold that front and center, because I think so often the conversation around reparations is kind of using the frame of slavery and that kind of antebellum period as the focal point. But we all know based on the questions and the conversation that there are current day harms that are happening right now. So I want to ask Angela to start us off and introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are.
Man, this home. These my people. Dr. Angela Barfield, product of Southwest Fresno. I am currently the executive director for Black Students of California United, which is a student-led organization that was established actually by the voices of 5 Black youth from the Central Valley, many of them from right here in Fresno, that said, we're not being respected, we're not being heard, and we want to impact change. And so to be given the honor to lead our Black youth to do that, and then impact the educational system. I know we're talking about entrepreneurship, but you can't get there without education. And so it's holding California accountable to what they owe all children, but specifically Black children, who are currently the lowest performing subgroup in the state of California. Enough is enough. So our Black youth are standing toe to toe to say enough is enough.
And I am Jamila Hassan Oliver. I'm not a doctor, but I appreciate that. Maybe that's prophecy. And I am the founder and executive director of Breakbox Thought Collective Plus Studios, which is an incubator and a makerspace for creatives and activists and healers. We are in downtown Fresno. Our work centers around healing, re-indigenizing, and also reclaiming Afro-Indigenous worldview, because it really starts with ideology. Yeah, there's an ideology that has a design and an arrangement that has an effect. And so what we're really trying to do is first unlearn the internalized racism within us that we're carrying, and then also heal our bodies so we can show up better for our families and our community and for ourselves.
Tell us about how that work is being received and showing up in the region. You talk about healing as a reclamation project, re-indigenizing. How is that being acknowledged and received both by young people and the people you work with, but also by systems, institutions, et cetera?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Many layers there, but let me just start with how it's being received by young people. We have a program, it started many years ago, called the Fresno Black Girl Magic Project, but then it turned into YBN, Young Black Navigators. And these young people, it's a rites of passage program, and these young people created a thing called Teen Night. I don't know if y'all have heard of this. And so about 100, maybe 150 young Black teens get together. They organize it themselves. And on the outside, it appears to be just a party. But on the inside, we had valedictorians showing up. You have no idea who these kids who are coming in. It just looks like a big party, but they're making changes on their campuses. And we were able to award $16,500 worth of $16,500. Yeah, sorry, I thought I said that wrong. Worth of scholarships. We've been able to do fellowships. Thank you. This summer we did that at the Summer Splash. So what we're doing is the young people are becoming organizers, and they're starting to critically look at what do these gatherings actually mean and what could their impact be. So that's one way I think it's being received very well from them. And also looking at the greater work. How does Teen Night inform everything else that we're doing? And so the students are also now looking at a thing called the Garden that they created. And that's going to be a space for mental health and wellness for Black youth. This is very important. Thank you. That's very important because our Black youth are affected and we don't always get to talk about mental health. And so what happens is, even if they are having a crisis, maybe there's a loss, we're handling grief and we don't know how to care. Adults don't know how to carry grief, right? And so what happens is at the Garden, they want to create a space where young people can come together and they want to do peer support training. We actually partnered with Onyx Trauma Healing Center. Kelly Baker is here. We're partnered with Simmons & Simmons, and their new space is called Mecca, but there's 3 Black therapists, and they're offering free Black therapy through our program. So that's 5 free sessions, 5 free therapy sessions. That's for your youth or anybody in your family. So all you have to do is, well, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, that's enough. I'm taking up too much space.
Angela,
we doing that.
Yeah.
So Black Students of California United, we are, we're coming in by way of the education system by reviving Black student unions. How many of you guys were involved in your Black student union when you was going through school? Mm-hmm. Keep your hands up if that Black student union has impacted your life today. Mm-hmm. Right. So now we have a generation of young Black youth who we are really trying to cultivate to understand how to use that space. It's an affinity space. It's a culturally affirming space in order to impact change. Unfortunately, we are in a system, and we're here in California, where they are really trying to strip our children from their spaces. They're making them believe that Black student unions are segregated and discriminatory. And so what we are doing is working hard to support districts that truly want to embrace the cultural history and the power that is Black people into these spaces, but also assuring our black students that don't be ashamed of who you are. Know who you are, where you come from, and who you represent, and use that voice to impact change. So our students are attending board meetings. You know, they're dragging their parents to board meetings, but they understand that it's their parents that vote. It's their parents that are paying tax dollars. And so we are asking our young people to use that time to cultivate and culminate. So many of you know the program that I created here in Fresno, which is called Ujima. Ujima is one of our 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which means collective work and responsibility. I take the time over a 7-month period to get our kids just here in Fresno to come together and work together. Because the system has torn them apart to believe, well, if you're at Edison, you can't associate with somebody at Clovis High. That's crap. Because our families are moving. We saw it in the data. We are migrating out. So if our kids are at a point where they can't get along with each other, the work that people are doing, like Tate and others, that is trying to bring the community back together, it won't work. Because in their minds, I can't work with you. Or our African brothers and sisters are being told before they come over here, don't associate with those black Americans. So now I have to cultivate a mindset in our young people to say, yo, you're just as black as me, and I'm just as black as you, and Ubuntu is what we live by. I am because you are, and you are because I am, and we got to handle this thing together. So the whole point of everything that we do is we have to bridge this intergenerational gap that exists. Because when I grew up, I listened to my grandmother. I listened to my uncles. I listened to my aunties. And right now we have a generation that say, I ain't got to listen to them. I don't have to respect them. I don't need to do this. And it's crumbling us. It is destroying us. So when we do go to Sacramento and we do voice our opinions, they look at us like, yeah, okay, whatever. So we have to build this generation back, and we have to combine, which is why the work that Jamila is doing is so important, because healing is education. When you know, they can't break that bond, right? So imagine a statewide group of black youth who are educated and cultivated to understand the power that they possess, permeating and moving through this system. That's when Fresno State will get more than 600 black students at a time. And our kids are being forced out of our home here in Fresno County, going to HBCUs and then having to come back because they don't have the money or the wealth. And then we're depressing our black families. So BSCU is really about training and cultivating the whole family. But first we have to start with the youth that are actually the ones that are going to save us in the end. Yes, black women are going to save America again at some point, but it's our black men and young black women and young black men that we have to help get that done.
Yes. You know, one of the things that has me really excited, you know, we partner with the DOJ and commissioned 2 UC Berkeley researchers to create a curriculum of the task force report. And that curriculum will be ready next year, and it will essentially qualify, you know, as coursework under the ethnic studies requirement. But it can also be used in community settings. And so the thing that excites me about your work is that you have a vehicle, you both have a vehicle that would allow for something like that to flourish. I wonder if you can say a little bit, I got to fast forward on my questions. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about solutions. What are the promising programs and policies that could foster the healing and build the power in the black community that y'all are really envisioning?
So for me, I would say, like for Fresno County, so we are the house of the 3rd largest school district in the state of California. Fresno Unified School District. 3rd largest.
Wow.
Yes, Fresno is huge, right? And Fresno has, yes, LA Unified has their Black Student Initiative, but Fresno Unified has African American Academic Acceleration. It's called A4. I'm going to toot my own horn real quick, Mark, when I say this. I hope y'all know A4 was my vision.
Pop your collar.
But I am grateful to former Superintendent Bob Nelson and now currently interim Superintendent Misty Herr for supporting Dr. Lisa Mitchell, who's a product of Fresno County, in her work to ensure that our black students are getting the things that they need equitably. It's not about equality, you all. This is about equity. Our kids need something different, right? But most of that is when Dr. Mitchell sounds the horn and says we need to show up at a board meeting, she needs her community to show up at a board meeting because our children aren't the voters. They're in the seats and they're being traumatized. Jamila knows this because that's where the healing comes in, right? When we're creating these affirmative spaces called Black Student Unions, we need our community to show up because the school districts are starting to pull back the funds, right? George Floyd, that whole moment is over, and they're closing the window very quickly. That's why we're grateful to California Black Freedom Fund for their support because it allows for us to really pour into our young people. But as a community as a whole, we really need to show up and show out, as they were saying earlier, on behalf of our black students. And the other thing I would like to see from our allies is it can't continue to be a Me Too thing. Black children need what black children need, and we need to fund what black children need. And it doesn't mean that Hispanic and Asian children are not getting. It just means right now we need. And it's okay to stand on that. So it's really about, you know, when Jamila is sounding the horn saying our babies are hurting, we can't turn our back. And we have to be confident in it and quit being afraid of, well, if I show up, I might lose something, right? We got to stand on business. That's what Golden Charter Academy said that all week. We stand on business. Our black children are now saying we standing on business. When you have DeAngelique in the streets, and she's blowing the horn saying, this is what we need to stand with her and say, yeah, this is what we need. So it's about accountability. It's really about accountability for us.
Thank you.
Whew, yes. Okay. So can you give me the question one more time? Because I want to be very specific.
We just want to hear the solutions.
Okay.
What do you think need to happen?
It's all right here and out there, right? We have the answers. We just have to build the relationships. We have to build radical friendships, right? We have to be intentional with our connections. And also, if you do your own trauma work, when you show up to a relationship, you can sustain that relationship. You can come in and actually be able to trust the person who's with you. And then when you get into a tension cycle, you're not like, oh, see, that's why I don't mess with you. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, I have the range to deal with the conflict and tension so we can build power. That's very important. Nobody talks about why can't we just stay together when we have a conflict? Right. Circle up. Stop talking about it. Did you circle up? First and foremost. So restorative practices are so very important. I would also say in terms of organizing, in terms of the other solution is co-design and co-realization. So we do need to be intentional when we do get together and we're being first, feeling, and then do last. Get to know yourselves in these transformational relationships, but then also when we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about actually planning together, mutual aid. We're talking about cross-sector collaboration. We're talking about charrettes. If we have a charrette at our place, we have maybe 30 people come. I really wanted it to be packed because I was like, how do we know what we're supposed to be offering at this space? This space is for y'all. We need you to come and tell us what's needed. We're leveraging the funds to try to get them directly to you. Tell us what you need. We want to hear from you. Be with us in this. Volunteerism is super important. We need more people because we underfunded. Five or 10 of us ain't gonna burn ourselves out, right? Trying to serve the community. We need to all show up. This is our world that we're building together. So I think that's really super important. The co-design piece, the trust piece, the stamina, emotional intelligence. There's another thing that I want to talk about that I forgot to mention earlier, but we also have a community healing day every fourth Tuesday. So on the fourth Tuesday, we feed you. We have a large table. And what happens is the practitioners, there's no divide. So you'll be sitting next to the therapists. You'll be sitting next to the care providers, and we have many different care providers, all different kinds of modalities, board certified and licensed, that's paid for. It's free to you, and there's childcare. So we just need you to come get the healing, get to know us. Let's build community together. That's on the 4th Tuesday in our space. If you follow us on Instagram, we're at BreakboxTC. Another thing is what I mentioned earlier about the 5 free therapy sessions. That is for you. Please spread the word that Breakbox Thought Collective, hey, if somebody has a crisis, somebody has a loss, and you know, or you're just talking to them and you're thinking to yourself that you need a therapist, right? You thinking that to yourself, remember, you can message us on Instagram and somebody can make that referral happen. Yeah. So please utilize these services and spread the word about that.
One more thing, Mark. I got one more thing.
Y'all gonna give me fired.
When we're talking about education, so we have your black student unions at the high school level. They're even starting at middle school levels. But don't forget, the community colleges have Umoja communities. Let me tell you something. We must educate ourselves on the resources that are there for us and built for us. Because if we don't utilize them, they will disappear. So at the community college level, you have your Umoja communities. You have A2 Men, which is a program that is specifically for black males because we are losing our black male leadership at a much higher rate than we can keep up with. Your black student unions at your CSUs and your UCs, please engage these systems. We must engage the educational systems to understand what's there, and then support those educators that are doing this work because it is a heavy, heavy lift. So please, get your children involved in black student unions. If you're in Fresno Unified, please reach out to Dr. Mitchell at the A4 offices. Clovis Unified, they have the Browder Scholars Program that needs supports. Every district has something that just needs a little bit more support. So if we're talking about solutions, it's right here, like Jamila said. We're the solution, but we need you all to engage it. I know we're tired and we're stressed out, but we got to do what we got to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
One last thing. I'm going to just make it really quick.
Final remarks.
I have to say the Ashe magazine is a black youth publication in this town. We are in our 6th edition. The kids decided that they want to do red, white, and black is the name of this issue. And it's coming out July 19th. And all of you, if you have stories or things that you're interested in seeing uplifted, please let us know.
Thank you. Thank you. Please give them a round of applause, y'all. Thank you. Thank you, Jamila. Thank you, Angela. Really appreciate y'all. And I think the last principle that is really resonating with me is around co-creation. You know, the young people are co-creating programs. They can also co-create policies. So as we have future events and we engage with you around State of Black California or reparations, we need more young people in these conversations. And so we hope and encourage all of you to get young people involved in co-creating this vision for the future. And this is an opportunity, I think, for all of us that was really created by the Black Caucus. And I just want to encourage all of you to continue to seek out ways to engage with the caucus. They believe in co-creation, which is why they've invited all of you here today. And I just want to close by asking Chair Wilson to come back up along with Assemblymember Dr. Jackson so that we can have some closing remarks. We will be following up with you via email and asking for your engagement, so please, please, please check your email as you are coming out of this and thinking about how to stay connected to us. Thank you.
Thank you to the California Black Freedom Fund for their work and all the logistics behind the scenes to make this happen today and all the partners that they used in Fresno. We also had our DCO, which is, I'm trying to remember the name of its Democratic Communications Office. Thank you. We do acronyms all the time and then forget what they stand for. We appreciate their support and making sure it's live streamed. So for everybody who was participating via live stream, beyond the people here, we thank you. Thank you for showing up and showing out. We've said that over and over again, but it really means a lot to us. It means a lot to me as chair of the Black Caucus and someone who's homegrown from Fresno to know that Fresno was, you know, our largest so far. Like I said earlier, it will cement that even after this group of legislators long gone, that Fresno will continue to be a part of the conversation. It is the 5th largest city, and so 5%, 6%, whatever percent of Black Californians that live here, it matters and it's worth it. And I remember being a little girl who grew up wanting to see people in leadership that looked like me, and we didn't have that. We had to look to, the South to be able to get that, or look to other states. But we are here as a Black Caucus representing you and ensuring that your needs are met. And so we want to continue to engage, as the word that was used earlier, co-create. We want to co-create this world with you, where Black Californians that are being born today are more advanced than us, than our generation. And sometimes I get worried that a little Black girl born on the west side of Fresno who grew up in poverty and dysfunction could be where I'm at today. Would that same little Black girl be able to do that? But then I get hope on days like this when I see all of you ready to do the work and ready to fight to ensure that the next generation of Black Californians that come out of Fresno and Fresno County will advance and will do amazing and great things. And we're here in the Black Caucus to be able to do that with you. So give yourself a round of applause. Now is a time for action, and to continue to act and to continue to engage. Please, you will get an email that includes a survey about this event, a survey about how you want to be a part of this conversation as it relates to reparations. Please complete that survey. The Black Caucus we meet every October for our strategic policy retreat. We will get that information, digest it, and it will guide what we actually introduce in February. So what you communicate actually goes into play of what we will prioritize as a part of the next reparations package for legislation in the 25-26 legislative session. So please, your voice is important to us, so make sure you take time to complete that survey. Make sure you take the time to include your families and friends and being a part of this conversation, because we want to hear from you. And with that, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. Be blessed.